जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी, जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी, जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी, जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी, यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन, यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन, यमुना तीरा वनचारी, यमुना तीरा वनचारी, जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, जय राधा कृष्ण चंद्र राधे, जय गोपाल देवा जय गोपाल देवा, जय गोपाल देवा जय गोपाल देवा, जय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय, गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय, जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 प्रभुपाद, जय जय गुरुदेव 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 गुरुदेव, निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल, हरि बोल हरि बोल। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम नमो भगवते देवाय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं, देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये, नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया, भगवती उत्तमं श्लोकैर्भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। Today reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 1, text number 11. कालं चरन्तं सृजति स आश्रयम्,
कालं चरन्तं सृजति स आश्रयम्,
प्रधान पुंभ्याम नरदेव सत्यकृत.
प्रधान पुंभ्याम नरदेव सत्यकृत.
Just 2 lines shloka. We'll repeat again. Kalam charantam srijati ashrayam.
कालं चरन्तं सृजति स आश्रयम्.
प्रधान पुंभ्याम नरदेव सत्यकृत.
प्रधान पुंभ्यां नरदेव सत्यकृत.
Reading the translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Just a second. O great King, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller of the material and spiritual energies, who is certainly the creator of the entire cosmos, creates the time factor to allow the material energy and the living entity to act within the limits of time. Thus, the Supreme Personality is never under the time factor nor under the material energy. Continuing with the purport. One should not think that the Lord is dependent on the time factor. He actually creates a situation by which material nature acts and by which the conditioned soul is placed under the material nature. Both the conditioned soul and the material nature act within the time factor, but the Lord is not subject to the actions and reactions of time. For time has been created by him. To be more clear, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that creation, maintenance, and annihilation are all under the supreme will of the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. Since Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the controller of everything, when he appears, he is not within the limitations of material time. Janma karma chame divyam. In these words, the words kalam charantam srijatisha ashrayam indicate that although the Lord acts within time, whether sattva guna, rajaguna, or tamaguna is prominent, one should not think that the Lord is under time's control. Time is within his control, for he creates time to act in a certain way. He is not working under the control of time. The creation of the material world is one of the Lord's pastimes. Everything is fully under his control. Since creation takes place when Rajaguna is prominent, the Lord creates the necessary time to give facilities for Rajaguna. Similarly, he also creates the necessary times for maintenance and annihilation. Thus, this verse establishes that the Lord is not under the limitations of time. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna is the supreme controller, Sachid Ananda Vigraha. He possesses a blissful spiritual body. Anadi, he is not subordinate to anything. As the Lord confirms in Bhagavad Gita 7.7, Matta Parataram Nanyat Kinchid Asti Dhananjaya. O conqueror of wealth, Arjun, there is no truth superior to me. Nothing can be above Krishna, for he is the controller and creator of everything. The Mayavadi philosophers say that this material world is mithya, false, and that one should therefore not bother about this mithya creation, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. But this is not correct. Here it is said Satyakrit. Whatever is created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Satyam Param, cannot be called mithya. The cause of the creation is Satya, true. So how can the effect of the cause be mithya? The very word Satyakrit is used to establish that everything created by the Lord is factual. never falls. The creation may be temporary, but it is not false. Om Jnanatimirindasya Jnananjana Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manodhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopikanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpadurvascha Kripa Sindhuve Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I would seek the blessings of all the senior Vaishnavas, sannyasis, and the well wishes of all the assembled devotees, so I can speak some valuable content on this transcendental subject matter. The translation goes, O great King, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller of the material and spiritual energies, who is certainly the creator of the entire cosmos, creates the time factor to allow the material energy and the living entity to act within the limits of time. Thus, the Supreme Personality is never under the time factor nor under the material energy. So here in this verse, Sukadeva Goswami says that the Supreme Lord, who is the controller of the material as well as spiritual energies, the one who creates this cosmos, this entire creation, material creation. So he also creates time, creates the time factor, which accordingly, this creation, it has a beginning and an end. We see in the Vedas, Upanishads, in these scriptures, that every yuga has a particular time period. Satya, Treta, Dwapar, Kali. So all the yuga runs according to the time, and as well as the creation done in this cosmos, in this material world, the living entities. So the body they receive, this material body they receive, that also has a particular duration of time. How long this living entity will live in this particular body, for how much duration of time. So the energy created by the Lord, this creation as well as the living entity, they work, they act according to the limits of time. But the personality of Godhead, the creator, Lord Krishna, he is not under the influence of material energy, because it is created by him, one who creates. So that thing won't be binding to him, because he made, he created time, and he, as well as the energy, material energy, or the material body. So the Lord is not dependent on the time factor, that he, according to time, he has, he will come and do his pastimes, and according to the time, he has to wind up his pastimes. But he comes at a certain time, and then he, after doing his activity, doing his pastimes, then he again winds up his all his activities, and then he goes back to his spiritual abode. So we see the living entity when he is in this material creation. So he gets a body according to his guna and karma, by the activities he has done, by his he acquires the bodies accordingly, and also he acts according to the character he has uh, developed. So in this life he works, and whatever activities he does, he creates a body for the next life, after leaving this body. So in that way, this evolution takes place, evolution of the body from one body to another. So this juncture of human life, when he gets a human life, this is a juncture where he can transcend his activities to from the ordinary activities of a living entity, that is eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Beyond these ordinary activities, he can transcend his activities by doing activity for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, for his own benefit. What is the benefit of the soul? What is the purpose of the soul? What is the function of the soul? So in this human form of life, he is given developed intelligence, and in this human life we have intelligence in full. We can develop our intelligence to the full. We can develop our consciousness to the full. Whereas in other living entities, we see they have subdued consciousness, starting from the tree, where the consciousness is very low, to other reptiles, and then birds and animals, like that. So the consciousness in this human life form of life, we can we have the intelligence as a human being to discriminate what is good, what is bad. We have the scriptures given to us where we can go through and we can understand what is the purpose of human life, or how the laws of mankind, how human beings should behave in the society, how we should act. So these Vedas, Vedas are called the mother. Mother is always thinking about the well-being of his children. So the Vedas are giving us direction how we can conduct our life, how we can be happy in this life, and at the end of this uh, body, when the body finishes, we can transcend ourselves to higher realm, to the go back to the spiritual abode, to our original home. So as the living entity has a time duration of his body, certain time he lives, a human being. So in other forms of body also, in other living entities like animals or birds or reptiles, they also have a certain duration of life, which they are given according to their desires and activities they have done in past life. So the material nature of the Lord gives a particular body to the living entity. So after passing through that stage of life, then they evolve to other species, like the other living entities I'm saying about. So they have to surpass that life duration, and then they evolve to other higher living entities. So if a human being, if he thinks that for his sense gratification he will kill other living entities and satisfy his tongue desires, so he's creating he's putting an obstacle to that life form to live his duration of life. So what happens? The karmic creations which that living entity has not completed in his duration of life, those karmic creations will come into the person who is killing that living entity or eating that flesh of that living entity. So like that, 7 persons are there who are in the Shastra is written who gets the reactions, karmic reactions of that living entity, who participates in this activity of killing and eating and buying and other things. So those who are involving in these activities, they are creating an obstacle for the living entity. And also in this creation, there's just as the time duration is there of the yuga life cycle, also for every living entity. Similar way, time also every day which has 24 hours, in that also the time is divided into 3 gunas, sattva, raja and tamo guna. Like the morning time, as 24 hours are divided into 3, like 8 hours, each guna is divided into 3. Each time factor is divided into 8 hours, sattva, raja and tamo guna. Like morning time up till 10 o'clock, from night 2 to 10 is a sattva guna time. So in that time, if you do spiritual activities, now that boosts up our energy level or our consciousness, now helps in the throughout the day to keep our consciousness in proper in proper mood, or at the lotus feet of the Lord, or to do activities in proper consciousness, in proper perspective. So the morning time, whatever spiritual activity we do, chanting, worshipping the Lord, reading spiritual scriptures, so these help us in our day, throughout the day, to work in proper consciousness. And then from 10 onwards, morning 10 onwards till evening 6 is a time of Rajagun, where all the people we see in this world, they are always there, means they are busy, they are running to go to the job, involved in Rajagun, passionate activities, making money, to earn money and activities. And then the evening time from 6 onwards, the time of Rajagun starts, where it is more prominent at that time. So as devotees, we do at that time also, evening time, we do samadhi, or we read the scriptures, or we chant, or participate in kirtan, like that, to keep our consciousness in proper focus. And as in Gita we read the time for spiritualist, time of awakening for the spiritualist is the time for activity for a materialistic person. Material person does all kind of sinful activities at the time of when it is time to retire, or at the end of the day, night time, he does all sinful activities, going for searching for intoxication, participating in intoxication, or doing obnoxious activities, doing gambling, or going to brothels. So night time, person is influenced by the by tamoguna. So the living entity a human being has to work according to time and do his activities at certain time, certain activities, so that it helps him and throughout his life in a regular mode. So as we read here that whenever there is a decline in religious practice and rise of a religion, that time the Lord appears in this world, or he sends his messengers to have a proper equilibrium in the society, to preach the glories of the Lord, to preach the instructions of the Lord, to reform the society. So the messengers, they come for the benefit of the human beings. And the Lord comes to establish the religious principles and also to kill those atheistic mentality people by establishing the religious principles. So as we see that the Lord being the control of everything, the time factor doesn't affect him. But the Lord, he acts within the time when such prominence is there of a religion. He comes at the time and does his pastimes and establishes the religious principles, and he again winds up his activities. So here in the purport we read further that the creation of the material world is none of the Lord's pastimes. Everything is fully under his control. Since creation takes place when Rajaguna is prominent, the Lord creates the necessary time to give facilities for Rajaguna. So at this point, I would like our senior Vaishnavas, our Sannyasis, Maharaj, to speak on this point that I'm not able to fully understand this. That the creation takes place when Rajaguna is prominent. Yeah, we know that for activity to do, we require passion. So that one point is there, but to fully describe it, I would request them to later on after the presentation, they can please describe it more elaborately. So the Lord creates the necessary time to give facilities for Rajagun. Similarly, he also creates the necessary times for maintenance and annihilation. So at certain time the creation takes place, Lord Brahma, he creates this creation, and then the living entities and all other paraphernalia. And as in Brahma Samhita, we understand that Krishna is the supreme controller. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarva Karana Karana. That he's the Karan, he's the cause of all the creation. There is no cause for him. And he also says that Matta Parataram Nanya. There is no truth superior to him. He is the Anadi. There is no cause for him. He is Anadi. He is the cause for everything, but there is no cause for him. And his body, how is that? His body? His body is blissful. He's always full of Ananda. It is not like our material body, which is Nirananda and diseased and influenced by these three modes. But in this world, the Mayavadi philosophers, what they say that this material world is mithya, because after involving in this activities of this world, they get frustrated that by doing so much of material enjoyment, still what happens? We suffer. Anything we do excess, we get the reaction of that. So there is no happiness in these activities of this world. So they reject this world as mithya. That this is false. And they leave this society and go to far off place, to distant places, to mountains and other places. Some genuine people, they rishis or yogis, they go in search of the absolute. There is a truth, supreme truth, on whom I should put my faith and put my trust upon, or worship him. But some people just rejecting this world, not knowing the supreme truth, that who is beyond this creation, or who is the controller of this creation. Without knowing the proper truth, they reject this world, and then what happens? They go to for social activities where they open up hospitals or distributing material necessities to people, and they find some satisfaction in that, thinking that this is the only thing. Or they meditate upon the Brahman, the all-pervading Brahman. That is also one part. The Lord in his unmanifested form, or the Brahman concept, is there in each and every atom. So, but only a person who has full knowledge, who has proper knowledge, who according to his pious activities, or his sukriti, or his clear intention, his sincere desire to know the superior truth, then the Lord within, as Paramatma, he will guide him to go to a certain person, bona fide person, or to come across such bona fide scriptures where he can read and know the proper goal of human life, to know what is my duty as a human being. This creation is temporary, but it is not false. Because if the Lord is the supreme truth, he has created this cosmos, his entire creation, then how can something coming from him can be false? It is there, but it's temporary for certain duration of time. Then again it is annihilated, and again after a certain time, when, as it is said, when Rajagun is prominent, then again creation takes place. So as a devotee, understanding that what this creation is, how what should be my activity, what is the purpose of my life, then he engages or does activities for his benefit, for the satisfaction of the Lord, knowing that the Lord is all in all, and my function as a soul is to serve the Lord. In that way, a human being, he will also be happy, and also he will be able to help others. So here this word Satyakrit is highlighted. Satyakrit is the meaning of Satyakrit is it is true. the creator who has done this creation, this cosmos, is also, it is Satya, is true, it's not false, as said by the Mayavadi philosophers. So maybe I will end here. I would like others, devotees, if they want to say something, some additional message on this words, they are welcome. Or any comments, any corrections, all the participants, they are welcome for that. Hare Krishna. Sanatan Goswami Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Sanatan Prabhu.
Hari Bol, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Our Sanatan Prabhu is not responding yet.
Maybe it's
Yeah,
some-
you are asking about the mode of passion.
yeah, Maharaj, if you can please now describe it, that since creation takes place when Rajoguna is prominent, I was saying about that, you can please elaborate so we can understand.
Little bit, because modes is very difficult to understand. But I can try a little bit because we are still under the modes. So difficult to understand the modes fully. Only if we cross over the modes, we can fully understand the modes. But yes, some theoretical understanding little bit will help to come out, to control our actions. So this material nature is working under three modes, right? But soul is transcendental to the three modes. But because it associates with the three modes, it acquires those modes. So now anything in this material world is carried out by the three modes. Prakrute kriyamanani gune karmani sarvasa. Ahankara vimudatma karta aham iti manyate. So whatever is to be done in this material world, it is carried out by the three modes of material nature. The nature. The nature works in three modes. So as long as we are here, we have to deal with the modes. Anything you do is you have to use the modes. But the person who is doing it, whether he is under the modes or not, it is understood by the motivation, right? So how the living entity acquires the modes? Because in the every action of the three modes, there is some pleasure for the living entity, some comfort, some pleasure or something. So when the living entity habituated to get that pleasure, so he seeks that mode. So then he is said to be in that mode. Because he is influenced by the pleasure derived in that mode or for particular activity. But if somebody's motivation is not the pleasure, he is not doing because he is getting pleasure, but because he has been ordered, but because he has been asked to do it, only out of duty. When he does it, he is called beyond the modes, particular mode. So his motivation is not to enjoy or suffer. It doesn't mean that he won't get enjoyment or suffering or the material pleasure and discomfort. They will be there. But he is not carried away by them. Nor his work is defined by them. That is called Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha. Raga Dvesha Mukta. Raga Dvesha means especially connected to the senses and the mind. Senses, sense objects, mind, our different positions, and ego, our different false relationships. Right? We are motivated by the pleasures we derive in them. So therefore, then we are called influenced by, means working under the modes. But to carry out any action here, one need to use the mode. Without using, you cannot. Just like whoever wants to drive the car, he has to use the steering, no other way. And the steering has 3 gears, Sattva, Raja, Tama. But in our case, we have many gears, many combinations of 3 gears. So if you want to run the vehicle, you have to use the steering and you have to use the gear, which has 3 gears. But if your purpose is why you are driving the car, then one is not within the modes. If his purpose and motivation is transcendental, then he is transcendental. He is not affected by the actions and reactions. He is not bound by the action also. So in this way, as long as this body is there, we cannot avoid the modes, but we can avoid we can change the motivation to transcendental motivation. And transcendental means you are not attached to the results, pains and pleasures. And ultimately, even that particular work itself. So, because he is not attached to pains and pleasures, he is ready to give up any time. He does for Krishna. He gives up also for Krishna. Right? Most of the times we do for Krishna, but we will not be able to give up for Krishna. So that is not a complete transcendental position. Transcendental position means we do for Krishna, we also give up for Krishna. So in this way, this material world works under 3 modes, but one who has self-reliance to fulfill for himself. So when we don't have our own personal purpose to fulfill, our own personal preferences, our own personal anything, then one is transcendental. One is transcendental to the modes, though he is engaged in the modes. Patna patram evam basi. Just like a water drop on the lotus leaf is not touched by water. Similarly, a transcendental person is not affected by the 3 modes, though he is fully involved with the 3 modes. Like Arjuna is fully involved with the mode of passion. But his passion is motivated by Krishna. Now we have to question what my passion is motivated by. And all the modes, all different actions in this world, there is a pleasure principle. That's how the living entities are motivated by the Lord in absence of love for Krishna. You sleep also, there is happiness. You create also happiness. And you are in goodness also happiness, knowledge. So there are different types of happinesses. And the living entity gets used to, get addicted to particular kind of happiness. So, but when his happiness changes to giving happiness to Krishna, so then he turns all the modes to serve Krishna. Because he has a body, he has to act, no? Rishikena, Rishikesa Sevanam Bhakti Ruchati, right? You have to use our senses to serve Krishna. You have to use senses means you have to deal with the modes. But if your motivation is not the pleasure or the pain of that particular activity, then you change the gears as per requirement of your service, right? Like pure devotee, he also sleeps. That is mode of ignorance. A pure devotee also, he does write nice papers or try to do some hard work to build something. It's a passion. Pure devotee also cultivate knowledge of Krishna for our giving knowledge to others, mode of goodness. So as long as one is in this world, he has to deal with the modes. But because his motivation is pure, 100%, is transcendental. It's transcendental to the modes. Nothing will touch him. So we have to distinguish between the body and ourselves. So when we are able to see ourselves distinct from this body, distinct from this world, distinct from the people whom we are identifying with, then we are able to properly employ the modes in the service of Krishna. So from Lord Brahma to the ant, everybody is working with the modes. Some are working under, some are working above. Some are driven by the modes, some are driving the modes. And there is a percentage. How much you are driving, how much you are driven. That is our journey. How much percent I am driven, how much percent I am driving the modes. So most of the times we are driven by the modes. But when we see we are not, we are above the modes. And I am supposed to drive the modes. Like children, no? You see in some homes, parents control the children. In some homes, you see children control the parents. Right? We have this observation. They become so much attached. Whatever they say, yes. They don't see what is the consequence. So in this way, similarly the modes. Some people are driven by the modes, some people are driving the modes of their body and the mind. So now, where am I? That is question to the individual, because nobody knows what is my motivation. Nobody can tell what mode I am. So I have to be vigilant, careful, and plan carefully. Otherwise, another body is waiting for me. If I am driven by the modes, means the modes are driving me to a particular body also. According to particular type of actions I do, the body is being prepared to accept. So this danger is there to you have to keep in mind. So accordingly, we will get a body, and Lord accordingly engages. Like here also, Lord, engages the demigods for creation. Different people, Lord engages in different things. That's why ultimately everybody acting according to Krishna's play. Some are above the modes, some are below the modes. So when we are above the modes, we act according to Krishna, what Krishna wants. In a positively, when we are under the modes, we take particular duty according to the modes. When we are above the modes, Krishna can engage us in any duty. But when we are under the modes, we are given a particular duty. Oh, that is only we can do. So this is a real journey of bhakti, to analyze my motivations and work on them. This is everybody individually has to do, because nobody can tell this is what your motivation, because you will immediately say that is not my motivation, right? This is what we generally do. And also others have limitations in judging, but I must be judged for myself. So if one is serious, then Guru and Krishna will help to cross over this. So then the actions will be transcendental. So the person will be transcendental. So our actions make us, our motivations make us transcendental or not. Therefore, we have to be very, very careful in our motivations. Otherwise, modes are already fully upon us. Modes are all over us. So we have to be expert to survive the modes by being fully transcendental in the association of transcendentalists. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. Thank
Hare
you very
Krishna.
much.
Thank you, Shobhi. Yeah, sorry, my network was bad. Yeah, so anyone is having any questions regarding today's class, they can raise the hand and ask His Grace Shyam Kishore Prabhuji. Yeah, Shyam Prabhu, yeah, I have
we
a
can-
question.
Yeah, okay.
It is not exactly a question, but yeah, so in this purport, till previous verses, it is more dealt on the modes, and whereas in this purport, this time factor has also been added. So Krishna is above the time, whereas this Paraprakriti and Aparaprakriti are both are under the influence of time. So how to understand that?
Yeah, we see as soon as the creation is done, the Lord induces the time factor. Here, like coming verses, we will read about this time factor. It will go on in the next shloka also. So as soon as the creation is done, it is made in a design in such a way that this time factor is induced in this creation for the duration of this temporary creation, for the duration of the living entities, and his life, his duration of living in that particular body. So time is induced by the Lord himself. So everything is works under the influence, because the design, it is designed in such a way so that now one thing is to realize for the soul itself that this creation is temporary, that anything is not going to last for always. This body also is going to finish one day, and it takes form at one stage. It is born, and then it starts growing up and becomes a young man, and then again it starts dwindling to old age. And any object also in this universe, we see, you take a building or any object, anything, pencil or anything. Now it has a time factor. It is stays for some time. It has a particular duration. Even if you see the body, the tree, the body of a tree, the soul which gets a tree body, it lasts for a long. The trees have the longest duration of life, but it has a particular duration. So everything the Lord has done this creation in such a way so that it is for the reformation of the soul to understand that in this creation everything is temporary, and your soul is eternal. You are eternal, and you have a permanent life. You have an eternal life. So that for realization of that, this it is designed in such a way. And also the Lord describes about himself, that he is Anadi, and also the part and parcel of him, that we living sparks, we as a soul, we are also eternal. So to know that in proper perspective, the Lord says about himself also what he is, how he is, and to understand that what we are in connection to him as being a part and parcel of him. So in that way, for our realization, this creation is designed. And that's what is to be understood.
Wonderful, Prabhuji. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so shall we wind up or?
Yeah, I think we should wind up. I also have a little back pain on the left side, so sitting also long. So maybe you can close here. Anybody have any question also? Tomorrow again they can continue, because the time factor is again described further, so it can continue. So I will ask leave from all the participants. So Granthraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Upasthit Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hare Hare.
His Grace Shyam Kishore Prabhu ki jai. Thank you all for joining. See you all in tomorrow's class at 7:30 AM. Hare Krishna.